Snow had been falling since dawn, thick and silent, the kind that swallowed tracks and turned even the loudest grief into something muffled and distant. The ranch sat alone beyond the timberline, its fences half buried, its windows glowing faintly against the blue dusk of Christmas Eve. Inside, Elias Boone stared at the fire without seeing it. The flames crackled and shifted, throwing light over the empty chair across from him, the one Martha used to sit in, humming while she peeled apples or stitched torn sleeves. She'd been gone 2 winters now, yet every Christmas the house still waited for her to walk in. Elias hadn't put up decorations this year. No wreath, no tree, just coffee gone cold and a plate untouched on the table. A knock came at the door. He didn't move at first. Folks didn't visit him anymore. Not since the funeral. Not since he'd turned into a man who spoke only when work demanded it. The knock came again, soft, unsure, almost swallowed by the wind. Elias rose slowly, joints stiff from the cold and the years, and opened the door. She stood there barefoot in the snow. Her dress was thin, frayed at the hem, clinging to her legs as if it were trying to protect her but failing. Her hair hung loose, tangled by wind, her lips blue, her hands trembling as she pressed them to her chest like she might break apart if she didn't hold herself together. Snow clung to her skin, melting into red patches where the cold had bitten too deep. I'm sorry," she whispered before he could speak. Her voice shook worse than her hands. "I know it's Christmas. I know folks don't like strangers knocking. But I ain't got nowhere to go, sir. But I can cook." Elias stared at her, stunned, not by her words, but by how familiar desperation sounded when it wore another face. He saw Martha in her eyes, not her face, not her body, but the look of someone who had lost everything and still found the courage to ask for mercy. "You'll freeze to death out here," he said finally, his voice rough from disuse. She nodded. "Yes, sir." That was all it took. He pulled her inside without another word, wrapping her in Martha's old quilt before the fire even. Noticed the change in the room. The girl collapsed onto the chair, shaking so hard her teeth chattered. Elias poured hot broth from the pot he'd barely touched and held the cup while she drank, her fingers too numb to grip it herself. "What's your name?" he asked. "Clara," she said. "Clara May." She didn't tell her story all at once. It came out in pieces between breaths and sips of broth. Orphaned young, passed from family to family like an unwanted chore, promised to a man twice her age who died before the vows were spoken, turned away by the town when winter came early and food ran scarce. "I didn't steal," she said quickly, tears spilling. "I swear it. I just asked for work. But they said Christmas wasn't for beggars." Elias felt something crack open inside him, something he'd sealed away with his wife's coffin. He looked around the house, at the extra plate he never moved, the chair he never used, and for the first time in 2 years, the emptiness felt like something that could be filled. "You can stay the night," he said. "We'll see about tomorrow." Her eyes widened, hope and fear tangled together. "I'll work," she said fast. "I can clean, cook, tend animals, anything." He nodded once. "Eat first." That night Clara cooked with hands still trembling, making a simple stew from what little he had left. The smell filled the house, warm and alive, wrapping around memories Elias thought were gone forever. When they sat at the table together, the silence wasn't heavy. It was careful, respectful, like both of them were afraid of breaking something fragile and new. Outside, snow kept falling. Inside, the fire burned brighter, and somewhere between the clink of spoons and the wind against the walls, Christmas returned to a house that had forgotten its name. Morning came soft and pale, the ranch blanketed in white like a promise unspoken. Elias woke before dawn, as he always did, but this time there was a sound in the kitchen, a gentle one, the scrape of a pan, the quiet hum of a tune he hadn't heard in years. Clara stood at the stove, fully dressed now in one of Martha's old dresses that fit her as if it had been waiting. She turned when she heard him, startled, then smiled shyly. "I hope you don't mind." I used what was left. The table was set, biscuits, coffee, even a small pine branch tied with twine, standing in for a tree. Elias couldn't speak. He sat down, hands clenched, throat tight. He realized then that this wasn't charity. he'd given the night before. It was salvation for them both. Days passed, then weeks. Clara worked harder than anyone he'd ever known, but never like she owed him. She laughed softly at the animals, talked to the horses like they were old friends. At night, they shared stories by the fire, hers of survival, his of loss. Neither crossed lines, neither rushed time. But something grew between them, steady as the seasons. The town noticed. Whispers came first, then looks, then warnings. "She's trouble," they said. "Girls like that don't stay." But Elias had buried enough to know fear when he heard it. And he wouldn't bury this chance, too. On Christmas morning, 1 year later, the ranch glowed brighter than the town ever had. Candles, food, laughter. Clara stood beside Elias, her hand brushing his, no longer afraid of being seen. "I still ain't got nowhere to go," she said quietly. He took her hand this time, held it. "You do now." Outside, snow fell again. Inside, love, slow, earned, and unbreakable, finally came home.